a couple of weeks ago, like I said, was flying the Cherokee 6 back from Atlanta, and he had an oh crap moment that really goes, wow, this is pretty interesting. And so he's going to come up and tell us all about it. As instrument pilots are one of the worst things that can happen. So without further ado, here's Bill.
All right, any George Strait fans? None? There's a song called They Call Me the Fireman. That's going to be Paul's new name, so anyway. Real quick, Flying Magazine, all you guys read it, I'm sure. Did you know this? I learned about flying from that. I'm familiar with this article. This is the same type of thing, except you're getting it in 3D live. These are great little articles where you can read about what people did, and they learned from it because they lived and wrote about it. But good stuff. This is basically the same type of thing. So a couple of you I heard were instrument pilots, some trying to be and learning to be instrument pilots. Has anybody had a vacuum failure? Yeah. Okay, so vacuum pump failures. I've never had one, and for real. I've had them flying around out here and all that kind of stuff. But for real, vacuum pump failure is quite exciting, and so I just had one about 2 weeks ago in that airplane coming back from Atlanta. It's a friend of mine's airplane who lets me borrow it, and he doesn't use it. Real quick, I'll tell you the scenario that we're going to go into about vacuum pumps and some different things on that. Let me just read some stats here I've got on vacuum pump failures. There are 40 accidents from 1983 to 97. So it's a big span. There are only 40 reported vacuum pump issues. Okay, 13 of those listed vacuum pump as a cause of the accident, and while the other one's listed as a minor cause of what happened. Okay, were they serious accidents with a vacuum pump? These are pretty crazy numbers. 4 of the 40 caused no injuries, so it's no big deal. 3 resulted in minor injuries. 1 led to serious injury. But 32 of the 40 were fatalities. It's 32 out of 40 with vacuum pump failures had fatalities. And we're not talking Dave VMC, we're in your practice area losing a vacuum pump, who cares? But it's just the importance of vacuum pump and us as pilots to be able to determine what's going on, because if you haven't seen one, it's kind of an eerie little thing, okay? When a vacuum pump dies and the vacuum pump instruments, which are what? Attitude and heading, they die real slow. They say it's like an old Western guy when he gets killed. It takes forever and ever and ever to drag it out. So it's very subtle. It's very subtle, and if you're not really watching what's going on, it could bite you in the butt. With my situation, just picked the airplane up. It hasn't flown in a while. It was in annual and all that, but the owner hasn't flown it, so he says, come get my plane and fly it for a while. So we were coming in from California, so it was a long day. I flew from California to Atlanta with my wife and son, and then we picked up the airplane in Atlanta after about 4 hours of him hauling around. And taking off, it's right at dark, and I figured I wanted to land here before dark. I already checked the weather. The ceiling was about 3,000 feet here. It was up to about 6 or 7 thick, from 3 to 6 or 3 to 7. And so I took off out of Atlanta, VFR on top, cruise along, no problem. They were giving me vectors, so I was on heading select with the autopilot. Cruise along, and all of a sudden the plane is like, it's turning, and it's kind of acting really weird. And because I was kind of talking to my son, good thing about this airplane, it has nice dummy lights. It tells when you lose something. So I look up and I have a vacuum light. Okay? And I go, crap. And then I get an off flag on my attitude indicator. And you go, crap. So I'm still on heading select. So I'm running through my mind going, okay, this is vacuum failure, you know, what's the weather, what's everything looking like? My wife's in the back reading magazine, she's clueless. My son and I tell him, he's 17, he's got a gazillion hours of flying, but he's not a pilot, but he knows how to fly. So I told him what we had, and the biggest thing was, I knew I was going to lose my attitude and heading. They were going to be gone. So then you get into partial panel, okay? When we practice vacuum pump failures, or if we practice failures of an instrument, you as a student, you're flying along and your instructor whips out his little soap dish sticky and goes, sticks it over and you go, oh, I've lost that. Okay? it's real quick and you bam, you're there. When you start figuring out what's going on, that's the hardest thing to do, is to find out what is going on. If you don't have off flags or nice little vacuum pump lights, it's kind of weird. You're flying straight and level on your attitude indicator, but you look and everything's turning. The turn bank is turning, all this kind of stuff. You're going, what's going on? You know, I'm trying to hold my heading, but it's just not really working. So is it your heading's gone? Is it your attitude's gone? What's going on is the biggest thing. So with me, back to this. I found out what was going on. I had this issue going on. And so once I got all my ducks in a row, saw what I had with partial panel going on, I knew I had to get through the weather. That was my biggest concern. And by then my heading was kind of just screwed. Okay, so when it started getting screwed, I'm thinking I need to fly straight and level, and how can I do it without disconnecting the autopilot? So I went to the GPS and just went 1 alpha 0, hit the GPS out in nav mode on the autopilot, which takes it away from this. It's using electronic turn bank and stuff. So I got my wings level off the GPS. So now I still have some time to think about what I'm doing. So everything's cool, cruise along, still think about what the weather is and all that. I haven't talked to Chattanooga yet because I'm still trying to get my stuff in a row. Once I get my stuff in a row, I call up Chattanooga and just tell them, hey, I've got a vacuum pump failure, lost my attitude indicator, my heading. He says, do you want to declare emergency? I said, no, not yet. Okay, that was my thing. I said, no, it's still cool right now. But I knew I had to go through the weather. I knew it was getting dark, the sun's setting, and I knew when I get below the weather, it's going to be darker underneath. So that was my big concern. It's got a standby vacuum pump. Okay? Pull a little knob out, nothing happens. Crap, push it in, pull it out, nothing happens. I was expecting to have the stuff come back. Nothing happens. I've got, let's say, a few thousand hours flying, many years of flying, many hours in this airplane. I've looked at that standby knob quite a bit. I have no idea how it works. Okay? Dumb on me. Okay? Now I know how it works, so truth is learned. It's more than just pulling the little knob out. If you have the luxury of having a standby vacuum pump, it's not using a vacuum pump, it's using the manifold pressure off the engine. Okay? So when you pull it out, nothing happens. What I learned is you've got to take your manifold pressure, like in an airplane like this, and start pulling it back until you get suction. Okay? Which is going to mean you might be back to 12 inches or so, which you're going to be descending and going slower, but you're going to get your vacuum back. And that's at higher altitudes. Down at low altitudes, 3,000 feet, I flew to Lafayette the next day with the standby out. Everything worked great. But at higher altitudes, it doesn't work. So I learned that. So, needless to say, I tried it, I pushed it in, I said, the heck with it, we're going to go without it. So now I'm back to talking to Chattanooga, saying, hey, I need to get through the weather. I told my son, I said, watch this VVI, I'm going to do 500 foot per minute. If you see any more than that, point it out to me. And so everything's cool, everything's great. I took the altitude hole off, little nose down trim, we just started the subtle 500 foot descent. Okay, he can only bring me down, I think, 3,400 feet. So I'm in the weather with my cross check, going crazy, looking at everything. For heading, which I really wasn't concerned about my heading at the time, all I had was a little mag compass. Okay? Real quick, we'll regress a little bit. Instruments that we have pitot-static instruments, which are which? Name some. And there you go. Okay, you got 3 of those. Okay, that's the pitot-static. Then we have the vacuum instruments, which we talked about, are the main 2 right here in your cross check. Attitude and heading. We have magnetic instruments, which are standby compass. And anything else? That's all I can think of. What? Yeah, then you have electric turn coordinator. That's it. So those are the type of instruments we have. They're all powered by something different for reasons, so we have backups. Okay, with that said, we're descending down. I get to 3,400 feet, I level out, I hit altitude, hold back on. I'm going, crap. I said, hey, I need to get lower because I'm in the weather now. And he goes, well, I need you to turn left to heading 270 because I was over the ridges down here. And he says, I need you to turn left so I can get you lower. So then I said, stand by. And then I had to think about what I had to do because right now the autopilot's flying off the GPS. Okay, everything's cool. So I'm sitting there looking, going, okay, we got to do a left-hand turn. So then I told him, hey, it's going to have to be no gyro vectors, basically. We talked about that stuff too. So he says, copy that. And so I disconnected everything, but before I did that, I told my son, watch for this, look for that. If you see big banks or anything really crazy, you know, which you can't really tell banks, it's a return thing. But if you see something going really out of the ordinary, let me know. So you get everything good, disconnect it, and he says start turn, so you just do a little standard rate turn off of that, maintaining VVI, cross-checking all that, but I still look at the mag compass too, way up there, and then rolling out. And once I get level, I couldn't engage anything to hold my wings level, so then it's just working the cross-check. And you're looking at all that I had available to me, and then start a little descent. And you do one thing at a time. You don't want to do a bunch because you'll lose it like that, okay? So just real subtle, got 270, everything's cool in the heading. You told me to stop turn, and then I started my descent, boom, broke out. And once I broke out, it was like, felt good. Because you below it, it was dark, but I could still see the horizon. It was getting dark. I can see Chattanooga. He asked if I wanted to go to Chattanooga. I said, nope, I'm good. Went out for 0, bam, autopilot's on, and we just came back into here. Okay, with that, all that said, it was exciting as in really what was going on. But my thing is, if you're up there and the weather is kind of poopy, you know, say it's less than 3,000 feet, that would be kind of exciting, trying to get an approach or something like that without a vacuum pump. Whenever I fly IFR, I always know where VFR is, and to make sure I can get there. I have enough gas. If I have to, I'm going to Florida, you know, if there's VFR somewhere. So I knew VFR was actually out to the west of us. If I had to, I would have just turned west and just gone that way somewhere and broke out VFR, but it all ended up good. We landed. My wife never knew what was going on. She was happy to be back. It was a long day. My son and I had a little debrief on what all really happened, so he would understand. But let's talk about real quick what vacuum pumps are. We know what they are, where they sit on the top of an engine. It's a little bitty thing about that big. What a vacuum pump does is it's got from 1970, we've gone to dry vacs. They used to use oil sumps, oil-based for lubrication, but now they've gone to a dry vacuum system, which uses graphite and the little fins in it. With that said, there's good and bad on those, because with those, when they fail like that. When a vacuum pump fails, most of the time it's a sheared shaft and it's going to die. And then you get the slow death of your instruments, okay? But a vacuum pump sucks air in through a filter, okay? And then it sucks it through the gyro instruments to get them to spin. That's what it does. And then it goes then from there into the vacuum pump, and then it's discharged. Most of it's just discharged into the airplane itself, the engine. If you have de-icing boots, that's where de-icing boots get the pressure from also, so the vacuum pump. The biggest thing about it is you got to keep them clean. If any water gets in them, any oil, any dirt, grime, it's just going to cause them to fail. They're really susceptible to that stuff. So that's exactly what a vacuum pump does. The vacuum pump gauge that we all look at, what that does is checking the pressure differential between stuff, and ours is mainly checked off the attitude indicator. Okay, so we're just looking at the little green arc, and there's a regulator that they can actually tweak that to make sure it's in the arc that we're getting it. Okay. There's more than just a sheared shaft of the vacuum pump system. There's other things in the system that could fail. The pressure regulator could fail, which will lead to stuff. One of our instruments themselves could fail. So if you see something going kind of crazy with your heading, don't say, oh, vacuum pump failure. Look at what you have. You have to evaluate. Look at your attitude indicator and say, is it gone also? You know, put a little pitch on it. Is it working? When I do a pitch, do I get a little VVI? Is my altitude changing? You know, because it could just be just a single instrument. Okay? So determining what failed is the hardest part of this. And right now, if I put, there's probably some high-time pilots out here. I know that Mr. 830, oh, it's an Airbus. Your plane flies itself anyway, so. Anyway, yeah. But you put you in the sim right now and failed it, you guys would be part of the French, but assholes and elbows trying to figure out what's going on. It's pretty crazy. With that said, we're going to talk about sim training. All of you guys are going to get some here eventually, okay? We talked about what power instrument is, vacuum pump failures, it scans the indications, it's going to be slow death for the vacuum pumps. it failed, you've got a failed thing, so now what can you do? What do we have? That goes back to your scan, okay? And you guys know what your scans are, right? Most of you are just VFRs, so you're looking out the window, not paying attention. But those of you coming into instruments, your scan is real important. It's when you're in the weather, hand flying it, your scan is really crazy, looking around. You have your main focus and you go out, back, out, back, out, back. So with a failure of a vacuum pump, you have two instruments that are giving you bad juju, okay? One thing I've read, which we don't do, which we talked about, Mark and I doing, is having those little suction cups. You want to get the bad thing out of your view. Because even with me with this, I knew I lost my attitude, I knew I lost my heading, but you have a tendency of looking at it. And this thing was kind of cocked and kind of weird, 15 degrees nose up. So you have a tendency of trying to look at that and your mind says, oh, I'm climbing, you know? So if you can cover up the bad thing and get it out of your cross check. If you have a piece of gum and a piece of paper, man, do something, stick something over it. Flight kits, they talk about having those little soap dish things, just have a few in your thing. If you need them, bam, you can hide an instrument, and then it's out of your cross check, and it makes things a lot easier. Because your mind is going to pick up on the bad thing, and makes it a lot tougher to do. No gyro vectors. Do we practice those when we do any instrument stuff?
This is all part of lessons learned.
Yeah, okay. No gyro vectors. Okay. In the military, we did approaches. We did no gyro vectors, ASRs, PARs, precision type stuff, and approaches. Just by stop, turn, start, turn, all this kind of stuff, having the controller control you. Very neat to know about when you lose your heading, but that's how the controller is going to do it. So we did talk about incorporating the use of no gyro vectors. Okay. We can go to Chattanooga and talk to these guys, and they give you no gyro vector approaches. So those of you getting in instruments, we might start doing that, just so you have an understanding of how it works. We could also do it in the simulator now. There's some do's and don'ts. I just put on the map because there's too many for me to remember. Good memory, just very, very short. Let me see what else I want to do. Oh yeah, these are just some questions here. Does a pilot recognize a system failure, and how do you recognize it? Is it a system failure or just one vacuum-associated instrument that's failed? Do you have a backup system? How does it work? I know now. Are you able to diagnose and understand what you have and which gyro instrument is lying to you? That's the tough thing, and it happens pretty quick. The average time for somebody, they did a big study on I forgot what it was, 60 pilots, varying from young guys to old guys, with all kind of experience. The average time was, what did we say?
7 or 8 minutes.
7 or 8 minutes to figure out what's going on with your instruments. Okay? And that's not a lot, that's kind of a long time when you're just droning around, especially if you're in the weather. Or if you just take off and the workloads are heavy, and you take off, you get in the weather, and then you lose a vacuum pump. Okay? So it goes back to cross-check and partial panel stuff. Okay? The first thing that I can't stress is knowing how to determine what it looks like when you lose a vacuum pump in the weather, which we have the simulator, we can simulate anything, so I seriously recommend everybody to go in there and practice so you kind of know what it looks like and put that in your little bag of tricks. Here's some do's and don'ts I wrote out here. Let's see. Do develop a comprehensive understanding of how flight instruments operate with their most common failures. So just don't get in an airplane and assume everything works, because as you can see with fires and failures, things happen in these airplanes, okay? So kind of understand what they do and what's going on. Do get regular partial panel practice. So just don't do it once and say, yeah, I've had it. Get back in there. I did it the other day with Mark and with Tom and all that kind of stuff. Get in there and just practice. It's good. It's good.
A lot of work. A lot of work.
It's a lot of work. You'll get a headache because you're just concentrating really hard. You're not looking out the window like Mark says, smoking a lucky. You're working, okay? And that work will save your butt. It says do carry instrument covers we talked about to be able to isolate which one has gone bad. It could be anything. Altimeters could go bad. Anything, any instrument. And if you take it out of your cross check, it makes it a lot easier than trying to look at it. It says do develop a plan for sorting out failures. For example, how to determine whether you have failed attitude indicator or a failed pedostatic system. There's ways of looking and seeing And it goes back to, in the military we had chair flying, the what ifs. You sit around and you can kind of just think, mentally think, if I lose a vacuum pump, I'm going to lose these. How can I check it? Which you can do right there on the simulator. I keep pressing the simulator, but it's a good tool. It's a good tool. But to know, what you have and how to evaluate it. That's the biggest thing, man. Do tell ACC about your problem, and as soon as you have things under control. But they can't fix my problem. They can help me with the no gyro vectors, what they did. He could help me with the weather if I didn't have it, stuff like that. But I'm telling you, I've done it before. I've declared emergencies many times in the military. And when you declare an emergency, the radios are going to get flooded. Okay? And if you're busy, just kind of chill out and tell them, hey, stand by. Let me get stuff in control, and then you can talk to them. Okay? That's why you don't want to jump on the radios. Aviate, navigate, communicate is the last thing. So fly your plane, get everything under control, then declare your emergency and talk when you can. Do get training in no gyro approaches, which is really good to get if you haven't. Has anybody done no gyro approaches in here? Okay. Very few. Yeah, very few people, but it's good to have. Okay. If you're a day VFR pilot, a lot of this really doesn't apply that you think, but how many times do you night fly? There's no horizon out there. You're flying off your attitude indicator. I've known flight flying out here. You take off out of here, there's no horizon. It's all on instruments. A good friend of mine in college died because of that. Private pilot took off out of Tallahassee, Florida. It is dark. And he got into some fog and just went to turn around. And as he turned around, of course it was his flying. He just ended up, my time must be up. Sure. Okay. As he turned around, he just ended up just sliced back right into the trees, 152, killed him. Which goes back to for a while they were going to make night flying where you had to have your instrument rating, and that never passed. Which I was all for that, because at nighttime you're on instruments. Okay. VFR pilots at nighttime you're on instruments, so know how to fly it in case you lose these two. It'd be exciting at night. Use all the resources you have available. When I was told when my heading bug messed up because I was getting vectored, I had to think what I was going to do versus like, oh man, now I'm flying off of this. I thought about using the GPS in that and went Alpha Zero, bam, bam, and to use that source. I used my son to help me out watching what was going on. So if you have a passenger, tell him, hey, watch this, make sure it doesn't go crazy. Or if you see it doing something, point it out to me. Use all the resources you have available. Don't get involved trying to diagnose why something happened. Oh, it did because I must have sheared a shaft and this, and don't get into all that stuff. You're not up there, like I said, being a test pilot. Just fly your airplane. Don't worry about why it failed. Just keep it level and straight. And don't forget to, your prime responsibility is to control the airplane. Fly the plane. That's the first thing you need to do. Let's see. I already said this. So what's a pilot do? Obviously, get some simulator training is the best course of action. If you intend to fly in clouds, you need to regularly train. You need to get training quite often. It's a nice to have situation. It's not, it's not a nice to have situation. It's a life or death necessity to know how to fly when you start losing instruments. Okay? And my big thing, like I tell my kids and all that kind of stuff, if you train, if you practice, if you study, you can then act when something goes wrong versus react. You don't want to react to something and then, because it can go to hell in a handbasket real quick, but you want to be able to act. I've lost this, what do I need to do? Then you get your scan going. Okay? That's it on the vacuum pumps. That one's done. Any questions on vacuum pumps? Failures? Anything?
On the GPS, on the nav pages.
Sits back?
Yeah, how would that help